Welcome aboard, my crew. As I'm recording this, it is Super Bowl Sunday, the high holy day of competition in America. Two teams, millions of eyes, big stakes, bigger egos, and the entire culture gathering around the question of who is going to win. Well, whether you care about football or not, you can feel the energy of it. The ads, the trash talk, the friendly bets, the bragging rights, my favorite part, what's going on in the kitchen. For a lot of people, this day is pure fun. Chance to yell at the TV and give your friends a hard time, eat too many snacks, and maybe bond over the game. But underneath all of that, the Super Bowl is also a giant glittering symbol of something much more personal, how we think about competition in our own lives. So today on The Pirate Therapist, I want to use this moment, this massive cultural competition, as a backdrop to talk about the competitions that we all quietly run in our lives, the games that we play with ourselves. Who is more successful? Who is more attractive? Who is more athletic, or whatever that may be? We want to know who's more together, who's better put together, who's living life better, who's a better partner, all of these things. So some of those inner competitions can light a fire in us in a good way. They can push us to practice, to show up, to discover the strengths that we didn't know we had. Others just drain us, turning life into a scoreboard where we never quite feel like we're winning, no matter what the numbers say. So, in this episode, while the world is watching two teams battle it out, we're going to talk about when the competition helps, when it hurts, and how we might be able to build a healthier relationship with competition so we can enjoy the game of life without letting it ruin our whole existence on the ship. So, whether you're listening with nachos in hand or waiting for the kickoff, or you just don't care about football at all and you just want some company to sit with you, welcome. You're in the right place. I'm Lee Perry, the Pirate Therapist. So, grab your spot on the deck and let's talk about what happens to our mental health when we engage in competition. Most of us grow up swimming in competition. Who got the best grades, who made the team, who's the most put together, and who's got the biggest following, who's winning at life. A lot of the time we just don't even notice that we're playing until we feel exhausted, resentful, and weirdly empty even when we're doing well. So I want to spend this episode asking a simple important question. When does being competitive help us grow, and when does it quietly start sinking our mental health? So, first, let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. When I say being competitive, I'm talking about things like the inner drive to win or be the best, the way we compare ourselves to other people, often without even realizing we're doing it. We're seeing life as a series of contests. Again, who's got the best body, the best job, the best relationship, who's the calmest, who's the most enlightened. I don't know. Anything can be taken into a light of competition. But sometimes competition can light a fire in us. And psychologists have found that competition can sharpen our attention and our motivation. Our brains literally get a little dopamine hit when there's a clear challenge in front of us. A bit of a healthy rivalry can give us energy and focus and a sense of purpose. We can push ourselves to learn, to practice, to show up. We might never have discovered certain strengths if there hadn't been a race or an audition or a game or a deadline, but there is another side. And if we're not careful, competition can slip from fun challenge into a constant comparison. And instead of asking myself, am I growing? I ask, am I better than them? Now, research on social comparison shows that the more we measure ourselves against others, especially people close to us, the more competitive and stressed we become. And that can turn a steady drip of anxiety and self doubt into never feeling good enough. So, for some folks, especially those of us wired towards perfectionism, competition can also feed a huge fear of failure. It stops being about playing the game and it becomes about protecting our identity. If winning is the only way to feel worthy, then losing feels like proof that we are a failure, not just that we have failed at something. And that's a lot of pressure to carry around in your nervous system. So here's how I want to sail through today's episode. First, we're going to look at the positives, the ways being competitive can actually support motivation, growth, and resilience when it's held in a healthy way. And then we'll turn towards the negatives. What happens when competition becomes a constant comparison, fear of failure, and a quiet killer of joy and connection? And then finally, we want to talk about how to build a healthier relationship with competition, how to choose where you want it, where you don't, and how to step out of the races that you never agreed to run. So, as we go, I'd love for you to keep a couple of questions in the back of your mind. Who taught you what it means to win or lose in life? And in your own story, where has competition made you braver? And where has it made you feel small? This isn't about deciding that competition is all good or all bad. It's about becoming more conscious of how it's operating in your life and whether the way you're competing is actually serving you or whether it's wearing you down. So grab something to drink, get comfortable, and let's start looking at the good that a little healthy competition can do for us. Healthy competition can act like a good, steady wind in our sails. It can give us direction and energy and reasons to keep moving. We just don't want it to rip the mast out of the ship. All right, so let's talk about the good side. Competition is not automatically the villain. For a lot of us, it's the thing that finally gets us off the couch and into action. So think about the difference between saying, I should probably exercise more sometime, and I signed up for a 5K with my friends in 8 weeks. One is vague and easy to ignore, the other is a challenge. When there's a race or a deadline, an audition, a game, suddenly there's a shape to our effort. We know what we're moving towards. We have a reason to try today instead of someday. For some of us, we don't really wake up until there's a finish line. Knowing that there's a race, even a friendly one, can give our brain just enough spark to kick over that engine. Healthy competition gives structure to our goals. I want to get stronger becomes I want to be able to lift what my buddy lifts. I want to write more becomes we're both going to finish our drafts by the end of the month. It creates a game out of growth, and games are often easier to engage with than vague self improvement. When you know you're going to be measured, tested, or seen on stage or in a game or in a test, you're more likely to practice. You run your lines again, you take an extra shot, you run through the song one more time. Competition helps us to focus. It can help create discipline, and it helps us to pursue problem solving and perform under pressure. These are all good things. Importantly, healthy competition also teaches us how to lose and to keep going, how to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and try again. Now, if you grow up in environments where competition is held with care, where adults say, yeah, that loss hurts, what did you learn? Would you like to try again? You're practicing resilience. You learn that I can feel disappointed and I can still survive it. You learn that I can fail at something without being a failure as a person. Now, that's a huge mental health skill. Being able to tolerate, but not always winning, but not always being the best and still showing up. You might tell a brief story to yourself that helps get you motivated. That is kind of a competition where you compare yourself to someone in this story that helps get you motivated and gets you going. When there's something at stake, even something small like winning a board game or beating your personal best or putting out your best work, you often feel more alive. We're motivated. We're feeling the thrill of life that gets us going. There's anticipation. There's investment of ourself and our energy. Sometimes we can get an adrenaline buzz and we want to ask ourselves, let's see what I can do. I want to know. Rivalry that is friendly can also make the process more fun. Two runners can push each other to go further. Two actors trying to outdo each other in a playful way can build. It makes us more confident when we're not out there alone. Two coworkers turning a boring task into let's see who can finish their own part first becomes both a race and a challenge. Healthy competition doesn't just push us. It can play with us. It turns drudgery into a game. And sometimes that's exactly what our brain needs to stay engaged. Discovering strengths that we didn't know we had. Sometimes we don't know what we're capable of until there's a contest. I have often told people that you would be shocked at what you're capable of if you would just get out of your own way. You don't know what you're capable of oftentimes until you just get up and try. Even when we try the first time and it's not so great, if we get up and we try again, we will have learned quite a bit just through those efforts the first time, and the second time will be much better. That is competing with ourselves. You can sign up for something mostly as a joke or because a friend drags you along just to discover that I'm good at this. You might discover that you're good at handling the pressure of this goal, this competition, whatever it is you're trying to do. And you might even love the feeling of working towards that goal. Now, competition can act like a mirror that shows you parts of yourself that you might not meet in everyday life. Your grit, your creativity under pressure, and your ability to adapt. You might invite people to compete with you sometimes. If you're feeling a lack of motivation, sometimes just inviting someone else to compete with you just to do it with you in a friendly competition might be what you need to help get you moving, to get you off the couch. So, was there a time where a contest, an audition, a challenge revealed a strength for you that you didn't know you had? So, what makes competition healthy instead of harmful? Well, there's a number of things that we can look at. We need to make sure we're looking at the competition as being about growth and not about worth. Losing means I have more to learn, not that I'm worthless. It can teach us that there are clear boundaries. There's a time and a place for the game. It is not your entire life. It can teach us that it can stay mostly fun and energizing if we keep it in our certain parameters. We might feel nervous, but underneath there's some excitement and not just dread. But we have to keep it in its place. We can't let it dominate our lives. We have to look at competition and know that you can be competitive and still genuinely cheer for someone else when they win. And that's good. We don't want to be stuck in that place where we can't be happy when someone else wins. We want to cheer our friends on. We want them to be happy. We want them to cheer us when we win. So it's good to be able to be happy, regardless of whether we win or whether we lose. We should always be learning, right? Now, if a particular arena is wrecking your mental health, we need to realize that we can step away from that. We can step out and not pursue that particular competition. We don't want to destroy our mental health because we can't let go of a competition. So, healthy competition, think of it in pirate therapist terms, think of it like a good strong wind. You feel it, it challenges you, but it does not tear your sails to shreds and it just moves you, but it doesn't drown you. Does that make sense? All right. So, where in your life has competition actually made you better, more focused, and more disciplined? Where has it made you braver and more willing to challenge something that makes you nervous? What kinds of competition can help you feel playful and energize you, as opposed to what kind of competition leaves you tense and exhausted? Now that we've talked about the wind at our backs, let's talk about what happens when that wind turns into a storm, when competition stops being a coach and starts becoming a bully. So, this next part that we talk about is where we're going to lean into how competition can quietly erode our mental health. It can bring about comparison and shame and burnout. It can damage our relationships. And without wanting to turn this into a rant, I want to just talk about how the competition can be negative. And I don't want to dwell on this too much because I don't like focusing on the negative, but I do feel it's important to bring it up. So, we've talked about good wind, how competition can motivate us and sharpen us. Now, let's look at the stormy side. When being competitive starts to hurt more than it helps, when everything becomes a scoreboard. One of the biggest problems with unhealthy competition is that it turns everything into a ranking. Instead of, do I like this? Or is it meaningful to me? Our brain switches to, am I better or worse than them? It becomes about our value as a person. So, you're not just going to the gym, you're competing with the person on the treadmill next to you. You're not just posting something you're proud of, you're competing with everyone else's likes and views. And perhaps you're not just doing your job, you're constantly scanning to see who in your job field, who's ahead of you and who's behind, and what does that say about you. These are all negative ways to look at competition. So, this can lead to what I call living like a walking scoreboard. Like, you're always checking the numbers. You never feel like you're done. Even when you win, the high is short because the bar moves. Mentally, this is going to feed our anxiety because we're going to always worry about falling behind. We're going to worry about not being good enough to stay on top. It decreases our self worth. We feel bad about ourselves when someone gets ahead of us. We feel like we're failing. It can create a chronic dissatisfaction where nothing ever feels enough for more than just a moment or two. When life becomes a scoreboard, you don't really live it. You're just performing life. So, let's talk about the fear of failure. Competition gets toxic when your worth is tied to your outcome for winning. So, winning equals I'm okay, and losing equals something is wrong with me as a person. So, you might Procrastinate because trying and failing feels unbearable, so you avoid trying. If you remember when we talked about the two windows of failure, that is one of the windows. We're not trying. So you might only do things that you're really good at and never touch anything new. That's not really helping you grow. And remember, growth is where we get that's what makes us feel happy is growth and accomplishment. So we want to try new things. We can't be afraid to try new things because we might not be good at them. We'll get better at them if we keep trying because we'll learn. You might feel constantly tense, like your whole identity is writing on every test or project. So we cannot look, if we use competition as a negative, we can't look at ourselves in a good way and say, I am not the best, or if I'm not the best, I'm nothing. If I can't do it perfectly, I shouldn't do it at all. These are bad ideologies. We don't want to get into that line of thinking because here's the kicker. Perfectionism often looks impressive from the outside. It's high achievement, high standards, and everybody's going to pat you on the back for it. But inside, it feels like you're living with a very strict taskmaster who never lets you rest or be human. Toxic competition turns your inner voice into an inner screaming coach who never lets you sit down, never tells you good job, and it never lets you just stop. It never says, you did good. You can stop now. You can relax. Because it always says, if I'm going to be good, I have to stay good. I have to stay ahead of everybody else. I can't let anybody get ahead of me. This is negative. We don't want to think this way. If you're constantly competing against coworkers or your friends, even strangers online, you ever hear that one? My wife had a cartoon once she showed me where a man was standing behind his wife who was furiously typing at the computer. And he says, are you coming to bed? And she says, I can't. Someone's wrong on the internet. We can compete with people that we don't even know. Even our past self. We can all of these things. They burn us out. And signs of this burnout can be we keep pushing even when we're exhausted because we've tied our value to the outcome. We ignore our body's signals of pain or insomnia and headaches. We don't want to ignore these things. These are all signals that our body puts off so we know we need to step back or step down, take a break. We don't want to just always be on overdrive. We want to be able to sit down and relax once in a while. Sometimes the things that used to be fun now feel like they're chores or obligations because we don't feel like we can just enjoy them. We have to win. We have to compete. We have to take it to a level where nobody can be better than us. And this makes us numb and cynical. And eventually, when that burnout reaches a certain level in our thinking, we look at that and we say, what's the point? We're never going to be good enough. And if we touch it, we're never going to be able to stay there. So at that point, it's not competition that's helping you to grow. It's competition convincing you to sail straight into every storm until your ship is just torn and battered. So if you stopped actually trying to win in one area of your life, would you actually lose anything important? Would you mostly lose the pressure that you're putting on yourself? If you're losing the pressure you put on yourself, wouldn't that be a good thing? Now, competition in a negative way can hurt your relationships. When you're in a competitive mindset, you can turn your friends into rivals. You can start to resent them because you feel like they're getting ahead of you. You can turn your partner's success into a secret pain. They're doing better than me. And it hits us in our self-esteem and we start telling ourselves that we're not good enough. Our conversations become a series of one-up stories rather than a connection. You ever know somebody like that? You ever run into somebody that doesn't matter what you say happened to you, they have something that was bigger or worse or better, or they have to take yours and one up it for themselves? Yeah, those are kind of annoying conversations to have with people. You can notice patterns where you feel like you need to win arguments, where you're struggling to genuinely celebrate other people's wins, where you feel uncomfortable or you feel upset and down on yourself when somebody else is doing well. Now, in your relationships, this can erode trust. People pick up on the fact that you're not really with them. You're just using them to measure yourself against. And they may stop sharing or start hiding their own joy and their own happiness from you because they don't want to have you try and undermine that or outdo them. They just want to have some joy in their own successes. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what we're all trying to shoot for. But we need to celebrate each other and not just get upset when somebody else is doing well because we take that as meaning that we are not. If every person on your ship is a rival, it's going to be a very lonely voyage. We want friends. We want supporters. We don't want enemies and competitors, people we feel we have to compete against. Now, one sneaky place that competition shows up is in our healing. You might hear your thoughts. They might be telling you things like, well, they're doing better than me. They're more self aware or regulated. They're more spiritual than me. They've been in doing well on their own, and I've needed therapy. Why am I not further along? If I'm in therapy, shouldn't I be doing better than them? Well, suddenly your recovery becomes a race. Support groups, therapy, wellness spaces, places that should feel safe start to feel like pressure cookers. You try and rush your process to keep up instead of listening to what you actually need. You feel ashamed when symptoms flare up, like you've lost progress or you're losing because you're falling behind or you need a minute to catch your breath. You compare your insides to someone else's outsides. Their calm voice, their nice Instagram posts, their curated breakthroughs. Your nervous system didn't sign up for a race. Healing is a journey. Don't look at your healing and your journey as a leaderboard. Competition can be good, but when we do it this way, it's not so good. So how can we tell when competitiveness is hurting us? Well, here's some questions I would like you to ask yourself. When I think about this area of my life, do I feel mostly energized, or does this area make me feel anxious and tense? Do I only feel okay about myself when I'm winning? Do I secretly feel like I'm in a race with friends, coworkers, or even strangers, people online? Do I struggle to be happy for other people's success? Am I regularly ignoring my own body's signals just to stay ahead? If the answer to any of these is yes, competition might be less coach and more bully for you right now. So, next, we're going to talk about what it looks like to have a healthier relationship with competition, one where it can give you energy and focus without running your life or wrecking your mental health. All right, so we've sailed through the good and the bad. Now let's talk about something a bit more nuanced. How do we have a healthier relationship with competition? We don't want to say not never compete again, and we don't want to say win at all costs, but a middle path where competition is a tool, where it's not your master. So we want to go from better than them to better than before. The first shift, who are you comparing yourself to? Unhealthy competition is all about, am I better than you? A healthier version is, am I growing compared to me? Am I doing better today than I was yesterday? Has my growth been something I could mark? Can I measure that? Now, the only sailor you need to out navigate is yesterday's version of you. I want to invite you to imagine talking or taking the other people off the scoreboard for a moment and asking, what would better look like for me personally? Better. What skills or qualities do I want more? Not because someone else has them, but because they would matter in my life. They would make my life improve. So instead of I want to be the fittest person at the gym, try I want to be able to walk up the stairs without feeling like I'm out of breath, or I want to feel more at home in my body. Instead of I want my podcast to beat theirs, try I want to make episodes that I'm proud of and connect more deeply with my listeners. If you're still allowed to improve, to aim higher and to challenge yourself, but the target shifts from other people to your own self, that's good. The second shift I'd like you to make is where you let the competition live. I want you to look at it and say, not everything in my life needs to be a contest. You can decide which parts are about winning and which parts are about belonging. One of the things that I realized in my time as a therapist was I used to play chess and I really enjoyed chess and I like to think I was pretty good at it. But when I became a therapist, I stopped competitively playing chess and I started teaching chess to young people in my office to help them focus on their executive functioning, help them to think more about choices and consequences. And I started using chess to teach and not to win. And it became exciting for me. I think it really hurt my game because I stopped playing competitively to win. But I think it's a much better use of the game because now I can help kids to do better and think about their choices and look at consequences and how they relate to their choices. Sometimes that's good. I have a good relationship with these kids because I can help them. They can feel like they're winning, they can feel like they're growing, and that's good for them. And I feel good because of that. So there are places where competition can be helpful in sports, games, work projects, skill building challenges, spaces where everyone involved knows it's a competition and chooses to play. These are all good places for competition. And then there are places where cooperative play is better in our relationships with our friends and our family. Therapy and support groups. These are good places to cooperate, to lift each other and not have to win, to create a space for creative play that's just for joy, that's just for fun. It's not about winning. In a place where we want to rest, where we want to just be able to turn off and just enjoy the moment. So maybe at your job or in whatever sport you play, is where you let that competitive fire burn. But in your relationships at home or with your friends, just allow yourself to rest and consciously drop the scoreboard. Let these be your safe harbors, your place where you don't have to be on and competing actively. Now, the third shift I would like you to make is using your body to tell you whether a particular competition is healthy for you. I want you to notice when I lean into competition in this area, how does my body feel? Some signs of healthier competition can be butterflies, maybe some excitement, focused, energized, maybe a little nervous, but not panicky. And after it's over, you feel tired, but in a good way, maybe proud, maybe reflective. But here's some signs that it might be turning toxic. It might turn into a tightness in your chest or a knot in your stomach, a feeling of dread. You can't sleep. You're hyperfixated. You're snapping at people. Even when you win, you feel flat and empty. You're already worried about the next round. Your nervous system knows the difference between a fun challenge and a threat. If every time you think about this competition, your body feels like it's bracing for impact, that's good information. The fourth shift I would like you to make is to celebrate others on purpose. Use it as an antidote for toxic competition. When you see somebody out there who is doing well, whether they blow past you in a race and they come in ahead of you, congratulate them. Try to genuinely be happy for them. Do it on purpose. And this can be hard when your brain is used to saying, if they're winning, I'm losing, but it's still good information. When someone in your orbit wins or hits a milestone or lands a job, just try to, as an experiment, just try to celebrate them out loud. Tell them you're proud of them, that you're happy for them, that you're feeling pleased that they were able to achieve something that's going to be good for them and it's going to be good for you. Send them a text that says, I'm happy. Maybe ask them for some pointers on how they managed to accomplish that win. They might be able to help you learn so next time you will do better. Try showing up and clapping for them in person. And now why this helps? It trains our brain to see other people's success as something that adds to the world, not subtracts from me. It strengthens relationships, which is a huge protective factor for mental health. It loosens the grip of envy and turns it into inspiration. If they can do it, maybe I can too in my own way. Again, if you ask them to help you, they might be willing to teach you. And if they teach you, A, you might improve and become better yourself. You might even develop a new friendship along the way, which will improve your social support system. Every time you cheer for someone else, you're poking a hole in a lie that there's only one winner and everyone else is trash. My brother used to say, I don't know that I like that. I know I don't like that, because just because you come in second doesn't mean you did bad. It says nothing about your value as a person. And fifth, I want you to remember that you can opt out. You don't always need to compete. If there are competitions that you're in and you're unhappy, it's causing you a lot of distress, you're allowed to leave these races. You don't need to be in these competitions that are hurting you. You don't have to keep running a race just because your family, your culture, or your industry worships that particular finish line. I want you to ask yourself, what competition am I in right now that mostly makes me feel small, sick, or miserable? If I step back or slow down, what do I honestly think is going to happen? Sometimes the consequences are real. It can be income or housing or safety. Sometimes, though, the consequences are mostly about ego and expectations. And we want to name the difference. We want to be able to see the difference. Stepping back from competing with coworkers for who got the most work hours, or choosing not to compare your healing timeline to someone else's. You're on a different journey. Don't do that. Deciding that your art or your hobby doesn't have to become a race to monetize or be the best. Opting out doesn't mean you're weak. Sometimes it means you're finally realizing that this particular ocean was never meant for your ship. So here's a small experiment. Pick one area in your life that you want to keep as a competition, and pick one area of your life that you would like to soften it, that you would like to let go and make that not an area of competition. Set a growth based goal. I want to improve my own time or skill by X. I don't want you to look at it as I need to beat this other person. Just say, I want to achieve this goal. Now, for that softened area that you pick, I want you to catch yourself when you start comparing yourself with others. Just tell yourself, look, they are on their path and I'm on mine. And bring focus back to what actually matters to you. And maybe one final experiment. Notice one person in your world who wins at something that you care about. And instead of shrinking or resenting, try congratulating them to their face in person and pay attention to how that feels in your body. As we furl the sails and steer back towards the harbor, let me put this all together for you. Competition is like the wind on the seas, powerful and unpredictable, and neither is all good or all evil. When it's steady and in the right direction, you can propel forward, sharpen your skills. It can give you purpose and even make the journey more fun with a bit of friendly rivalry. But when it turns into a constant gale, endless comparison, and fear of losing your worth or burning you out from chasing someone else's finish line, it can tear your rigging apart and leave you exhausted. It can leave you feeling isolated and convinced that you are a failure. The key isn't to swear off competition forever. It's learning to read the weather, choose your races wisely, compete against yesterday's version of yourself more than anyone else, and celebrate the other sailors' victories without shrinking, and know when to drop the anchor in calmer waters where life is not a scoreboard. Now, Super Bowl Sunday might be the biggest stage for competition that we've got in our country, but your real games, the ones where we're looking at healing and connection and creativity and just simply being human, these are not about winners and losers. They have people showing up, trying and stumbling and trying again, and that's enough. So if any of this reached you today, here's one small challenge that's not really a challenge at all. This week, notice one place where competition feels energizing and lean into it. And notice one place where it feels draining, and give yourself permission to ease off, even just a little. You don't have to win every race to be worthy of the voyage. Thanks for sailing with me today on the Pirate Therapist podcast. I'm Lee Perry. I am the Pirate Therapist. So until next time, may you find enough wind to keep you moving, enough calm to catch your breath, enough compassion to remember you've already been enough, win or lose. Fair winds, my fellow black sheep. And remember, we don't want to follow anyone blindly, but instead ask questions and find the best way. We don't want to walk blindly, but to move forward with our heads held high and our eyes wide open. Now take care of yourselves. It doesn't matter who wins the Super Bowl today, but just so you know, I'm rooting for